Hey everybody, it's Glenn back in this video as you all asked for it. Well, all 6 of you. It's the WWE Elite Collection Series 39 British Bulldog. Not only that, but this series also marks the debut of the new Elite style packaging. And as we give it a spin, we can see that this being a flashback figure, it is the recipient of a classic influence WWE style logo that I don't know about you, but that sure does nostalgically pluck at my heartstrings. Then on the packaging back, we get a picture of old Davey Boy flashing his pearly whites and some stats. Taking a closer look at those, and I think most significant to me is that he is a former Intercontinental Champion, having beat Bret Hart, which is a feat in itself, but he did it on British soil at SummerSlam 92 at London's Wembley Stadium. Then of course at the bottom, the packaging back pictures the rest of Series 39. And the series comprises of Sting, who, judging by the Raw logo next to him and his receding hairline, is a modern version. Then Damien Mizdow, who, had Mattel got him out 6+ months ago, would have sold like hotcakes. Now not so much. Then we have Dolph Ziggler, then the Godfather, who's the recipient of the Attitude Era WWE logo there. I'm still on the fence about getting him. I've hovered over his figure on the pegs at Toys R Us, I tell ya. And then every series has a peg warmer, and in this series, at least around me, that seems to be Psycho Sid. Oh, poor Sid. Yet, in spite of the pity in my voice, not that I feel sorry enough to pick one up myself. Hey, who am I to break up the Psycho Sid party that the pegs at Toys R Us are having? Here is the British Bulldog out of packaging, and of course I couldn't resist snapping him up, as the accent you hear me speak is English and not Irish or Australian or Indian or other places that people in the comment sections of my videos ask me if I'm from there. So of course I have to fly the flag for good old Blighty. Not that I really have to though, as the action figure is literally doing that itself. And speaking of his flag cape, my big concern with it is that it would be made of a hard vinyl, but you can see it does have some flex to it. But is it enough flex that wearing it he doesn't have to be permanently posed like Jesus nailed to the cross? Well, as we see here, by moving his arms down to a more neutral position, it does force the flag to jut out at the back, which will take up more space on my display shelf than I would like, but it's actually a pleasant surprise because I feared him being completely immovable in it. But then if the flag cape isn't to your liking, or you want to display him more ready for in-ring action, then it can be removed, as it fastens and unfastens at both of his wrists and then around his neck. Now taking a closer look, and the application of the deco on his tights is pretty crisp. As a customizer myself of many an action figure in my time, I absolutely live in fear of 2 things: painting words and painting straight lines, and this combines both of those in a real respect-worthy fashion in my eyes. Taking an even closer look, and I absolutely love the attention to detail that's been paid in the sculpt of all of his braids. However, I do wish they didn't have the appearance of levitating off of his body into the air so much. I guess they did that so you could more easily fasten his flag cape on or off? I don't know. And an attention to detail that is missing is that all the beads are painted white, whereas as we look at the picture on the packaging, they are in fact red, white and blue. I can see Mattel deciding to paint them simply white just as a budgetary concern, but it's a shame, as it really would have brought together his braids with his tights and cape much more. As for the actual likeness, and it's really strange in that sometimes I think it's a complete spitting image for Davey Boy, then I look at it from a different angle and all I see is a fat Grandmaster Sexay. Now looking at articulation, and his head rotates side to side, which might also be why his braids are seemingly levitating, as not to inhibit that articulation. Then there is no neck hinge, yet his head does move forwards and backwards slightly, but it's not really posability per se. Then at the shoulder, his arm rotates and then moves up to about a right angle to his body. There's upper arm rotation, followed by a single jointed elbow. Then at the wrist, there's rotation and the hand is hinged, moving down and up. He has waist rotation and then an ab crunch, which moves this far forward and then moves this far back. At the hips, his legs move out to the side this much, then they move this far forward, They don't really move back. There's upper leg rotation, followed by a double jointed knee, then rotation at the top of his boot, and then at the ankle it's incredibly stiff, but there is an ankle hinge, plus the tiniest ankle pivot. So all things considered, I give the British Bulldog a wholehearted recommend, and I don't think I'm talking from a position of British bias there. Here's a big slice of 90s wrestling nostalgia for the world to love. And at the very least, with Psycho Sid seemingly being the peg warmer of this series, the British Bulldog won't see the same peg warming fate of our previous WWE dog, the Junkyard Dog. Now, you may remember in a previous toy hunting video, I was on the lookout for an English Bulldog figurine to accompany my British Bulldog figure in the way that Winston did to Davy Boy in life. Well, the best I could muster was a French Bulldog, kind of amusing, you know, the British and the French, not always the easiest of bedfellows. So I plan on doing some customizing to him, from turning him into a French Bulldog into an English one, which will require some painting of course, and then a distinction between the two breeds seem to be the ears, with French Bulldogs having pointed ears and English Bulldogs not having them. So that will require some sculpting, and maybe if I get around to doing it, I'll share those labors with you. Anyway, click this video if you missed my previous wrestling figure review featuring Charlotte, and I hope to see you next time. Rule Britannia.